Hi folks, this is potentially quite a big topic, but I'm just going to do a sort of very brief intro to it. And it is the subject of the spear and the shield in use together. And really the topic that I'm quite interested in, that there's been a lot spoken about, is the difference between underarm use of the spear and, let's switch over, there we go, and overarm. Okay, now what's very evident is when you give people spears and shields and you get them sparring, most people one-on-one feel much more comfortable using the spear underarm. It's kind of like how you thrust with a sword most of the time. It just feels more natural, it's less tiring on the arms. I think most people find it's got longer range as well. I certainly do. I find I can hold the spear further towards the back and thrust it like a great big long sword. Okay. However, in artwork, for a huge period of time, whether you're looking at ancient Greek vases, for example, or whether you're looking at Dark Age, sort of Anglo-Saxon, Frankish, Viking period art, or indeed whether you're looking at 15th century art where they're still using the sword and shield, particularly in southern Europe, in Spain and Italy, it's very, very common to see the spear held up like this. Okay, and we all know it was often used like this in African countries and Asian countries as well. Okay, so overarm with the shield here. Why might that be? When you hold it like this, you can't hold the spear as far back because the head kind of becomes unwieldy and heavy for most people. Your arm, your forearm and your wrist just doesn't really work very well to support it. So you have to hold the weapon further forward, which gives you less reach. It's more tiring on the deltoid muscle on your shoulder. So why would it be that it's so common throughout history and across the world to see spears used like this? As a first thought, and I'll talk about this more in future videos and other possible thoughts and theories and ideas, and please share yours in the comments below here. I think there are two things that are probably the dominant reasons why this is such a common position to see spear and shield used in. Firstly, it's the throwing position. Okay, and in a lot of places, in a lot of periods of time, this spear has not only been a hand weapon, but it has also been a missile weapon. It's been the only missile weapon. And whether you're looking at fights between ancient Greek warriors or whether you're looking at fights between Maasai tribesmen, it's common to have the spear as both a stabbing weapon and a throwing weapon. Of course, the opponent doesn't know when you're going to launch it and throw it. And I've sparred in tournaments where throwing of the spear was allowed, and I'll tell you, it completely changes your tactics when you know that your opponent might throw the weapon at any point. It makes you much more cautious to close in, and your legs are very vulnerable, especially to throws. So you can even if you protect your high parts with the shield very effectively, if they suddenly throw it down your leg, there's not an awful lot you can do to avoid it unless you're really quick on your feet. So I think that's one reason why it was often held up here, because it means that you've got the option to stab or throw at an absolute, blink of an eye with no hesitation. You can do either, and your opponent doesn't know which you're going to do. And it's important to mention that most cultures that sometimes threw their spears have a secondary weapon, like a short sword, for backup. So once they throw this, and probably immediately after they've thrown it, they draw the sword and go straight into combat, close combat with the sword before the opponent can regather their sort of guard position and such like. Okay. The second reason why I think this position was very common in history is if you imagine that rather than just me standing here, I'm surrounded by my mates, my fellow soldiers who are fighting on my side, and we're all hemmed in and we're all in a fighting force together. Okay. Our shields are maybe touching in a shield wall, and clearly I don't want to hit the guy behind me or the guy next to me in the face with the back end of my spear or the side of my spear. Okay? Now, if I'm holding my spear up here, it's perfect. I can fight the opponents in front of me or to the side of me, either side of me here. I'm not going to hit the guys next to me or behind me. The back end of my spear is sticking up in the air, safely away from the guys behind me, and my arm is up, so no matter how many people were squashed around me, I can still operate my weapon, I can still stab, and importantly, it stabs downwards towards their face and chest over the top of their shields. Okay? Now, if I switch grip to this grip that feels more comfortable when we do sparring, that's totally useless for standing in a group, because my arm is now down at the height where it's going to get squashed against my compatriots either side of me. The back end of my spear is poking the guy behind me in the face and chest, okay, which he's not going to like, and in fact I don't really have space to operate the spear because I don't have enough space behind me to operate it. And it just doesn't work, okay, so there we go. I think those are the two main reasons why in historical artwork and anthropologically in different cultures around the world, this holding the spear up here is so common to see. Firstly, because it's very versatile for both hand-to-hand combat and throwing, and secondly, because if you're fighting in a close formation, in a close group, it makes far more sense than holding the spear like this does. One-on-one in a dueling situation, I love this position, it's great, okay? But in a battle situation, I can see why it was maybe not so popular. Okay, thank you.